All right, guys. We are still doing some connections, but we are live. Nick, Michelle, Eric Child, can you guys hear us and see us okay? Make sure it's all coming in okay. Yep. Turn the volume, mute the TV. Hey, Nick. All right, we're all good. Oh, Mel's on there. Okay. So we are here live with Carey Bringle, who is the pitmaster and owner of Pegleg Porker Barbecue. We thought that Memorial Day weekend, obviously, we want to make sure that we recognize the purpose in the day, the reason for Memorial Day.
Yes.
And thank all of those folks who gave their lives and their family and the appreciation for that. But in addition to that, it's also usually a weekend that people like to get together with their friends and hang out and cook out and grill and barbecue. So we are here with Carey, and really was just a chat more about all things barbecue, all things Nashville. Hey, Mark Finley, see you. See Michelle, see Nick. And just, kind of see what questions you guys may have. Now, I will tell you, Carey, we've got Mark Finley is from Texas, and he let me know that he didn't know Tennessee had barbecue.
Silly Mark.
So why don't you?
We're cooking real barbecue, not steaks. All right, I'm just saying.
Is that what that is?
That's what we used to say when you want brisket. First of all, that's a steak, and second of all, go to Texas. I'm joking. I've got a lot of friends down in Texas that cook some great barbecue. One of my good friends, Wayne Mueller with Louis Mueller Barbecue in Taylor, Texas, is the king of the beef rib, and we got a lot of friends down there that cook a lot of great barbecue. But in Tennessee, real Tennessee barbecue is pork and chicken.
Yeah, and Nick's saying, what is the style of Nashville barbecue? So,
well, our barbecue is actually West Tennessee style, which is Memphis style. We do a dry rib, and then we also do pork butts. We do pulled pork, which was originated in Tennessee. And then in the Lexington and Lexington region of Tennessee, they're cooking whole hog. But we do it different than in North Carolina. In North Carolina, they chop it all up together and douse it with vinegar and hot sauce and serve it that way. In West Tennessee, in Lexington and Henderson, when we do whole hog, we pull from all the different parts of the hog. So you can say, I want Midland meat, or I want shoulder, or I want ham, or I want loin.
Okay.
But what we do at our restaurant is dry ribs are our specialty, which was invented by the Rendezvous
in Memphis.
In Memphis, the Burgess family, and they were actually Greek. And they had their restaurant, which was a sandwich shop to start out with, and then they had these coal pits that came down to these coal chutes. They converted them to smokers, and they started charbroiling their ribs, and then they used a dry seasoning, not a rub. So after those ribs came off the smoker, they hit them with the seasoning, which was Greek in origin, and it's a barbecue seasoning, not a rub. And that's what we do. And the difference between us and the Rendezvous is that they charbroil their ribs, and they cook them a lot hotter and faster, and we smoke ours, and then we do them in the same style.
Okay.
And ours are cooked a little bit longer and slower.
And just so you guys know, Rendezvous is a Memphis institution, and it is right behind.
It's right downtown
on
3rd.
I was going to talk about the Peabody.
Yeah, it's right by the Peabody. Yeah. You can walk. It's in the alley.
Yeah, the Peabody Hotel, which is sort of an icon in downtown Memphis.
And they've been open 70 years.
Yeah, long time. So let's back up, because I know we just got right into that. And first of all, sorry, we're all looking we're at the lake. Hey, Megan, we're at the lake. And Carey, it's kind of funny because he cooks barbecue, of course, all the time. But when we're down here,
we generally cook steak.
We usually don't have. So we're not actually barbecuing. So I hope everybody understood.
Barbecue is a noun, not a verb.
Okay, thank you.
So we cook barbecue. We're not barbecuing.
Yes, okay, we're not barbecuing
Unless you're a Yankee or something. You
When-
might be barbecuing.
people from all over up here.
Yeah, look, I don't got no problem. There's some great barbecue up in New York these days. But they're cooking barbecue. They're not barbecuing.
Okay. So anyway, we're not having what traditionally Carey serves in his restaurant, which is going to be pork. And also, let's just talk. Carey and I have been friends since fifth grade, which is a lot longer ago than I want to tell anybody. And Carey, let's talk just a little bit about, first of all, the restaurant name, how it got started, and your barbecue beginnings, I guess.
So I learned how to cook barbecue from my uncle, Bruce, who competed in the very first Memphis in May. My granddaddy was from Covington, Tennessee, and so barbecue was kind of part of the culture down there. My family settled in Tennessee in 1827, and I've got a picture of my granddaddy in the middle of World War II on the island of Luan with the natives in the Philippines cooking whole hogs during the middle of the war for the troops.
Oh my goodness.
As a naval officer.
Yep.
And so we have a long history of barbecue in our family, but nobody owned a barbecue restaurant. It was always a passion, and my grandfather delivered a lot of the children of barbecue families. And so it was always something that was important. My grandmother would always send me all the articles from the different barbecue places. And so I started cooking at a young age, probably at 12. And then it evolved, and then I joined a barbecue team right after I got out of college, Hog Wild, and I cooked with Hog Wild for 12 years, and then started the Pegleg Porkers as a barbecue team, and then started doing my dry rub and sauce and selling that and cooking I would do some caterings like for weddings, and then I would cook in the end zone parking lot where we used to drink in Green Hills and sell ribs out of that parking lot. And then finally, I decided to make it a career and opened a restaurant, and that was in 2013.
Yeah,
7 years ago, actually.
Today's the anniversary.
Today's our 7-year anniversary.
And so for those people who don't know why the name Pegleg Porkers.
It actually came from, we were down here at Pickwick. I was swimming. I was 17. I was swimming in the lake down by our dock, and otters hang out down there. And everybody thinks they're cute and cuddly. They'll lay on their back and they'll grab the mussels off the bottom of the lake bed, and they'll break them on their stomach, and they'll pop them open and they'll eat them. But then they take the shells and they put them on the styrofoam floats on the dock below the level of the boards. And I was swimming around the dock, and we could see all the shells. And, as a kid, you're curious. And so I grabbed one of those shells. Well, this otter came up and bit the shit out of my leg. And I didn't think anything of it. I thought, oh, it's an otter bite. That's kind of weird. But and so it got infected, and then ultimately it got more infected, and gangrene set in, and they had to take off my leg. It was a tragic.
17 years
Everybody
old.
thinks otters are cute. They're some mean sons of bitches. They're terrible. They're awful. Awful creatures, those otters. They will go after you in a heartbeat. Not a pretty sight. And anyway, so stay away from otters.
Yep, stay away from otters. So Carey did lose his leg above the knee when he was 17, our summer between our junior and senior year in high school. Mm-hmm. And so that's where the Pegleg Porker name comes from, just so you guys know.
I literally am the Pegleg Porker.
And let's see, Nick Peterson is asking, are we in Tennessee or Indiana now? Actually, neither.
No, we're in Iuka, Mississippi.
Right.
And if 200 yards off the dock is Alabama, and about 500 yards to the left of us on Tennessee. The river is Tennessee.
Yep.
We're right at the border of Tennessee, Mississippi, and Alabama.
Yeah.
At Pickwick Lake.
Yeah. But Carey's restaurant is in Nashville. Yeah. And let's go back a little bit to Pegleg Porker. You decided to only do West Tennessee style.
We decided to do what I grew up with, which was, ribs, pulled pork, half chickens, wings, and we have a very limited menu. and we did that for a reason. Nowadays, so many barbecue restaurants are trying to be all things to all people. And I think that when they do that, they are ultimately failing because they are spread too thin. They're trying to do too many things. So I wanted to do something that was what we thought we could do best. We don't even have a wet rib on our menu. You get our rib our dry rib is the rib that you get if you order ribs at Pegleg.
Yep.
And that works for us. That's what people like. That's what we do the best. And there's no burgers, no chicken fingers, no anything like that. It is straight up West Tennessee barbecue. And that, you know, if that's what you want, that's what we have.
Now, I think it was announced in the Business Journal a while ago, though. You may be offering some additional stuff at another place.
We are opening another location. It's going to be in an area in town of Nashville called the Nations, which used to be industrial and kind of a little bit trashy neighborhood, and
on the west side of Nashville.
On the west side of Nashville, and now it's revitalized. There is a lot of young couples, a lot of new homes. They've done a lot of work over there. They've changed a lot of those industrial sites into commercial buildings for office space, for retail. And we bought a little piece of land at the corner of Centennial and Louisiana, where it makes like a triangle.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to open up a different place. It's going to be called Bringle's Smoking Oasis, and it's going to be a Texas-style place. So who was it that asked us?
Mark Finley's a guy
Mark Finley. We're about to open a Texas-style place where everything will be sliced and by the pound, and we'll have brisket. We'll have smoked turkey. We'll have pulled pork. We'll do ribs, but over there we'll probably do St. Louis-style ribs, and they'll be salt and pepper ribs, and that'll be it. So it'll be very different, but the Smoking Oasis will allow us to have a little more freedom to do some things that I like to do. With Pegleg, I put myself in a box, and I did that intentionally. I wanted it to be a very specific restaurant. And there's only one Pegleg Porker, and there will only ever be one Pegleg Porker. We weren't trying to build a chain. We're 100% family-owned and operated, have no investors, no partners, anything. And Bringle's Smoking Oasis will allow us to be a little more creative with some different things, and but it's not a Pegleg Porker. It's a completely different concept.
Okay.
And we think it's going to be good. Old gas station converted.
So, Nick says, awesome barbecue runs in your blood. It does. And post that pic for Memorial Day, Carey. Eric Child is saying that.
What's that?
Post the pic for Memorial Day. I don't know what pic he's talking. Oh, of your grandfather.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, I'm not at the restaurant, but I can probably find it on my computer or something.
Yeah, it's Eric Child.
Yeah, it's a great picture.
Yeah. All right, we've got somebody else. Melissa Smith is saying, Martin's is locally owned. What's your deal? Which I think you just explain what your deal is.
Yeah, so we're 100% locally owned. Pat Martin's a close friend of mine.
Yep.
Pat lives in Nashville now. He's not originally from Nashville, but he's been in Nashville for a long time.
Yep.
He used to be my neighbor, lived right down the street. We used to sit and drink on my side porch. Pat is backed by a group called Fresh Hospitality, and now they've built 10 Martins, and they have, I think, 4 Hugh babies. And so he's got an investor group that's behind him. They are still locally owned. Fresh Hospitality is in Nashville and Birmingham. And Pat has expanded outside of Nashville. Now he's got one in Birmingham. I don't know if he has one in Atlanta. He has one in Bowling Green. 2 in Bowling Green, I want to say.
Louisville.
Is it Louisville? Yeah. It's Louisville, not Bowling Green. 2 in Louisville. Yeah. He's got one in Charleston now. Yeah. And but our business model is very different. Yeah. So we are 100% family owned and operated, no investors, no backers. Pat owns his places, but he has an investor group behind him called Fresh Hospitality. And nothing wrong with that. It's just a different model, and they've done different things with our model. we wanted to have one Pegleg Porker that was a destination, that was a legacy spot, and not build out a chain. They're building out more of a chain, but they're not franchised.
Yep.
Their Pat still is involved in every one of them, and they do a great job. I love it. I go over to Martin's and get a brisket taco, and Pat and I saw each other last week, and great guy and a great family. Love his wife Martha, and all his 3 kids are dynamite.
Just a different model.
It's a different business model. Ours is truly 100% born and raised local in Nashville, and
Family owned.
100% family owned and operated with no backers, no investors.
So let's talk a little bit. Well, we've got a couple of questions. So first of all, when we were talking about where we were, Eric Child said he thought we were at Loch Ness.
I did not see the Loch Ness monster.
Oh yeah, you thought that was the Loch Ness that bit you off. Yeah.
Yeah.
That got your leg. Nick is saying, my mouth is watering hearing this. Love when you stay in your sweet spot with barbecue and focus on making it great. Nick wants to know how long you typically smoke your meat how long you smoke it before you cook it. Well, smoking it is cooking it, right?
Yeah. So we use butts because we get the best yield, and it's the best cut of meat for making a barbecue sandwich or a pulled pork platter. We smoke those butts for about 18 hours. Okay. So we smoke it between 200 and 220, or really between 190 and 220. It depends. And we smoke those for about 18 hours. And so they go on the night before. They cook all night on our smokers. And then in the morning, we have somebody come in at about 6 o'clock, 6:15. They put on the ribs and the chickens and the wings for the day. We cook fresh every day. And so we're cooking fresh every day. We want to sell out, but we don't want to sell out too early. We want you to be able to come to the restaurant and get food. So we're cooking multiple runs all day long. So the butts, because they take 18 hours, we have a finite amount of butts.
Right.
Whatever we choose to cook for the day, that's how much we're going to have for the day. If we sell out of butts at 5 o'clock, we're out of butts. There's no way to supplement that. With ribs and chicken and wings, we cook multiple times throughout the day. So we run our first run of ribs. We try and estimate how many we're going to have at lunch. Yeah. As soon as those come off the smoker, we put on another, a bunch of racks of ribs.
So how long are the ribs on?
The ribs cook for about 3 to 3.5 hours. Okay. They cook at 250. They cook for about 3.5 hours. And so if we run out of ribs during the day, because we didn't put on enough for lunch and then we run out, we may be out for like an hour, and then when the other ones come off, we've got ribs back again. Sure. Then at some point at the night, we're out. But on a typical, I'm like before this COVID stuff, on a typical Saturday, we were running through 400 to 420 racks of ribs on a Saturday.
And how many butts
butts? We would cook 60 to 75 butts for the day.
And what's that usually?
That's a lot of meat. Each butt weighs between 5 and 8 pounds before it goes on. You've got a 65% yield. So, you can run the math on that, but it's a lot of meat. And then you mentioned chicken. We do chicken. We do half chickens. That's all we do.
Okay.
And wings. We do wings and we do whole wings.
Okay. Yeah.
So they're not cut up. They're the whole wings. So they have the drum and the flat and the tip attached.
So some of these folks that are on here have been around on some of our other live streams and some other groups, and there's always this.
Roscoe.
Sorry, one of the bulldogs just plugged the laptop. Yeah. There's always this thing about the flats versus the wings, and
I love flats.
Yeah.
I would rather have a flat than a drummy all day long.
Really?
Yeah. Wow. But we serve whole wings, which is much more of a Memphis thing. Not many people in Nashville do whole wings.
Yeah, and I think Trace can, because she's a wing fanatic. So yeah.
So we only serve 4 wings with our meal, but that's equivalent of like 8 wings.
What are your thoughts on the size versus what you get somewhere else?
Oh my gosh, it is unbelievable, because you go and usually you get the little bitty, wings and the little bitty, drummies. but here you get the actual wing. So
Full wing.
yeah.
And what's funny is I actually love little wings. I like wings that are teeny, that like a flat, and it's like small.
Really?
Oh, that's what I love. That's just me personally.
Yeah.
My customers love our wings. We
Yep.
smoke them and then we fry them.
Yep.
And it's a great. And then you can either get buffalo or dry, or I don't even know what buffalo, dry,
Barbecue.
barbecue.
Yeah.
And or and what Shane asked today. Shane loves wings tossed in white sauce, and he was like, "Well, I can't get that at your place." And I said, "Well, actually, you can get that at our place, no problem. You just have to ask for it. So if you want our wings like dried, tossed in white sauce, all you have to do is ask." He's Fred. That's my buddy. This is my boy Fred right here. One of my 2 English bulldogs. He and his brother Roscoe are running around right now.
Yeah. So
Fred G. Sanford.
So
And our boy Eric Childs is also a cancer survivor.
yes, he is, and
Yes.
Eric's on here. We all went to or Carrie and I went to high school with Eric.
Yeah.
And he actually asked for us, Trace, what's our dream next trip? Well, we were on a trip that was supposed to be all Scandinavia for the Northern Lights when COVID hit. We were doing Ireland, more Northern Ireland, which we had never done, and then west coast of Ireland, and then we went Scotland, and then we were going to Scandinavia for the Northern Lights. So I would say probably that's first on our list. Yeah. Depends on the timing for Northern Lights, but we definitely want to hit that again, Eric. And then, we've got a ton of places. We were actually talking to Carrie and his wife last night about different places we all want to go. Carrie wants to go to Spain.
I've been to Spain. I love Barcelona.
Yep.
This time if I go, I want to rent a house.
Yep.
So I can cook.
Yep.
Because I was just in hotel rooms and didn't have a kitchen, and you go to La Boqueria.
Yep.
And you see all this fabulous, wonderful food,
and you can't cook it,
and stuff, and you can't cook it. So I would love to rent a house in Barcelona or some other parts of Spain and go to the market and cook that great food.
Yep. And let's see, Malcolm is actually in New Zealand, if I have that right.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know what style barbecue they have over there.
Well, there's a lot.
Malcolm?
They've got a barbecue renaissance going on over in New Zealand. They do Meatopia over there, and I have some friends that go over there and cook for that event.
So what is Meatopia?
It's a big barbecue event. They've got it in New Zealand. They also do it in Australia. I've gone and cooked barbecue in Australia. My buddy Morgan McGlone, who's a chef that was the opening chef for Husk in Nashville, actually is from New Zealand but lives in Australia now, in Sydney. Or actually, he lives in Melbourne. He's got places in Sydney and Melbourne. I don't know if he has a place in New Zealand, but it's Bell's Hot Chicken. He took Nashville Hot Chicken down to Australia, and he's killing it. He's crushing it.
Really?
And so when I went and cooked in Australia, I cooked with Morgan, and he's built a chain of Nashville hot chicken places called Bell's Hot Chicken in Australia. He may have one in New Zealand, I don't know. And then he's also, I think, just opened one in Hong Kong.
Wow. So Malcolm, let us know, because I think that's right. I'm pretty sure I'm right that you're in New Zealand. I may be completely off, but let me know. And haven't heard of that in New Zealand. So yes, so he's telling us that yes, he is there, but he hasn't heard of it. Let's go back.
Morgan is from New Zealand, I believe. He's a Kiwi, if I'm correct.
Michelle says the Tennessee barbecue typically have a large quantity of garlic. Being allergic to garlic, I always struggle finding barbecue that won't make me too sick.
So it's not a large quantity of garlic, but I do have garlic powder in my dry seasoning, and that dry seasoning is in my sauce. And so, yes, there is garlic in it. And you're typically going to find garlic in most Tennessee barbecue sauces. I would say you're going to find garlic powder and onion powder in them.
What about, does Alabama white sauce have?
No. Alabama white sauce has no garlic in it. Depending on who's making it. We make a good white sauce, and it's very easy to make. We share the recipes it's mayonnaise or a Miracle Whip. We use white vinegar. Some people use apple cider vinegar.
Okay.
Some sugar.
Yeah.
We have our dry seasoning in it, so it does have a little garlic in it. But you don't have to use
Probably
our
not a
dry
lot.
seasoning.
Yeah, you could use
You
something
could just
else.
use black pepper and salt.
Yeah.
And then we add a good bit of black pepper.
Yeah.
And some people add lemon juice.
Yeah.
We don't have that in ours.
Yeah.
And blend it up, and it's not only great for poultry, for chicken or wings, but it's also a great slaw dressing.
Yeah. And so, Michelle, I don't know if that helped you. If you've heard of Alabama white sauce, that is something. I mean, certainly at least around the South, you can get with your barbecue instead. So that may help some. And they're talking about the dogs. They love the dogs.
Exactly. Yes.
Nick is telling you when we're in Barcelona to watch out for pickpockets. Yes, we've been there.
Yeah,
Trace and I've been there as well. Yeah. Yeah.
That's why I carry a money clip in my front pocket.
Looks like Darian's on there.
Yeah, Darian is on here. Now, Darian lives in Georgia now. He did live in Florida, but he goes to Germany all the time. Yeah. And I know you've been to Germany.
Yes.
And I don't know.
Munich and Berlin.
Of course, they're all about pork and pig knuckles and all that.
Yeah, look, I like Munich better than Berlin.
Okay.
I liked Berlin, but I liked Munich better. And great pork, but very different. The knuckles, and then also the big dumplings and stuff. Yeah. And it's potato dumplings and pork knuckle, or and it's great. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I had some of the crispy pork knuckle.
Oh yeah,
it was awesome.
That was in Berlin, though. Right?
Oh yeah, yes.
And it was awesome.
Michelle says garlic powder's fine, just can't do the real stuff. So there you go. Malcolm is saying Malcolm's the one in New Zealand. The Spit Roast Company has been around here for years, and they use giant spit roasters, as the name says.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you're.
Well, you cook a pig on. We cook whole hog generally on a pit, and we'll lay it out, stomach down first, like open cavity down first. Get some smoke in there, get some heat, some flames, and then we'll roll it over and lay it on its back and cook it that way. And then the fat renders, and it sits in the middle cavity, and it poaches the pork almost. It's poached in fat, which is what's that called? It's a French technique. I forget. It's a not sous vide, but confit.
Yeah.
It's almost a pork confit that happens in the middle of the pig
because of the
fat. And basically you're cooking the pork in its own fat in the center of that hog.
Yeah.
And you don't want to nick the skin, because you don't want that fat to come out of the hog and drip on the fire. It'll flame up and it'll ruin the hog. Yeah. So that's the way we do it. Spit roasted hog. It's going to be a hog that that you run a
giant rotisserie.
Yeah, it's a big rotisserie. Right. It's a great way to cook a hog. It's very popular. That's very popular in Hawaii and the Philippines. Okay. They spit roast hogs, and they do it all over the world. Yeah. Generally, somebody's sitting there by the fire and hand rotating.
Yeah. So that's the issue. And does it take just as long?
It takes almost just as long. It takes a long time.
Because you're still cooking it over that low and slow, right?
But it's going to crisp the skin a little bit more. Yeah. It's going to be a little bit different, but it's a great hog.
I don't know what that is. Let's see. They're saying, Alan has just grilled some pork chops. I think we're having some pork chops.
We're having pork chops tonight.
Yeah.
We're actually sous videing them. So they're cooking in a water bath right now.
Yeah, let's talk about that. What is sous vide?
So sous vide is you use an immersion circulator, which is it's basically a drop-in water heater and circulator. So it heats the water, it circulates the water. You put your food either in a cryovac or a vacuum sealed bag, or a Ziploc bag you can use. But you season your food, you put it in there, and then you submerge it in the water bath, and the heat of the water will cook it, and the water is constantly circulating, so it keeps it at a very constant temperature. And the thing about it is, you can take your food to an exact temperature.
Right.
So you set your sous vide for 135, and that food is going to hit 135, and it's never going to go above that.
Yep.
And then it can sit in that water bath for 3-4 hours and
At
not
that temperature.
overcook.
Yep.
It's sitting at that temperature.
Yep.
And then you might take it out of the bag and sear it
Yep.
to get some crispness on the outside of the skin.
Yep.
But your interior is cooked edge to edge perfect.
Yep.
Because it's been cooked evenly in that water bath.
Yep.
So right now what we're doing is some pork chops and a tri-tip steak.
Mhm.
We seasoned them first.
Yep.
We put them in a vacuum seal bag. We added some butter, and then we vacuum sealed them. Now they're in the water bath. They're going to cook for about an hour. And then once they come out, we'll throw them either on the grill to sear the outside, or we'll throw them in an iron skillet and sear the outside, and then they'll be perfect.
Okay.
Great dinner.
See, Malcolm said he too liked Munich much better than Berlin. Darian saying, I love both Berlin and music, but I spend most of my time in Munich and other places. Of course, each city has its own feel. Yes.
Yeah.
Nick says, yum. Oh, Malcolm said the spits are motorized for the.
Rotisserie motorized spit.
Alan A says the water bath reminds me of a hot tub I was in once. So Alan is up in the suburbs of
I
Chicago.
didn't touch that woman in that hot tub. I swear
Stop,
to you.
don't.
I did not have sexual
Don't,
relations
Gary.
in that sous vide bath at all.
All right, so Alan is from outside of
Feel your pain.
Chicago,
Feel your pain.
Windy City Smokeout. Let's
Yeah.
talk about that.
So we normally do the Windy City Smokeout. We're in Chicago usually every year. It just got canceled a few days ago, which we hate because it was one of our favorite events. And Chicago's a great town. I love it. My father was a mechanical engineer, and he actually built the Northwestern train terminal out there and Arlington Racetrack. And so I love to go visit Chicago, but unfortunately, the Windy City Smokeout was canceled for 2020. We'll be back up there in 2021.
Now, is that a charity thing or no?
No, it's put on by the group that's Let Us Entertain You, that owns a bunch of restaurants.
Okay.
And they're a great group. They couldn't treat us any better. They treat us like solid gold. And it's a country music concert as well as a big, huge barbecue and beer festival.
Okay.
And so they have tons of craft breweries, tons of pitmasters, so you can eat food from pitmasters from all over the country and listen to the newest country, that's going on. It's really a fun event.
And then where is it in
They
Chicago?
just moved it to the United Center. It used to be down at this venue that was down by the river.
Okay.
Really cool, loved it, but it just got so big,
Yeah.
they had to move it to the United Center
Okay.
the last year that we did it.
Okay. So Alan, and I don't know if Liz and Derek are on or not, but Carrie is usually in Chicago once a year. Let's talk a couple of things. First of all, you mentioned you cooked in Australia. You've cooked in the Canary Islands.
Yes.
Anywhere
That's
else?
Spain. That's Spain province off the coast of Morocco.
Okay.
Yes, Australia, Spain. I was supposed to go to Sweden in August.
Okay.
And I don't know if that trip is still on or not. I got to check with them. I was going to go cook at Holy Smokes in Sweden,
Okay.
which is a barbecue place that is seasonal, and great guys. They've been to the States. They've come to our place, and I was really looking forward to that. But I don't know how that's, if we're going to be able to do that or not this year. I was going to be doing that with Miguel. I forget his last name, but it's Valentina's Tex-Mex in Texas. And so it's going to be me and my buddy Robert Jacob Lirma and Miguel all cooking over at Holy Smoke, Sweden.
So when you go to these different places, people are invited there, or it's a charity event or whatever it is. Are you always cooking what you traditionally would have at your restaurant, or?
No, sometimes we cook what we would traditionally have. It depends on what they want us to do. Sometimes we, kind of break out of the norm and cook something different. I feel like almost at a festival, we should cook something different that you can't get in the restaurant.
Okay.
So that it gives you a little different taste of something that we don't normally do. Because if you're paying to go to a festival, I feel like we ought to, in some areas they want our dry ribs, and that's what they want because they don't have that in their area.
Yeah.
But in other areas where if they're close enough and they can come to the restaurant, we'd rather cook something that they don't normally get that's unique.
So, and let's talk about that too, because when people think about, smoking meat or whatever, I would say that pork is usually probably brisket or pork are going to be the first two things that come to mind. What else can you cook or have you cooked on a smoker?
Oh, a lot of stuff. So we love to cook. We love to cook pork. We love to cook brisket. We just don't do it at the restaurant. Love Louisiana style barbecue shrimp.
Okay, yeah.
Last night we did a shrimp that was barbecue shrimp, but it was not Louisiana style barbecue shrimp.
Yep.
It was shrimp poached in actual barbecue sauce.
Okay.
And the Rendezvous does that in Memphis.
Okay.
You have to call 24 hours in advance.
Okay.
You have to have a big group because they're serving you you got to order 5 pounds.
Wow.
And, but it's literally barbecue that's been poached in barbecue sauce. Yeah. Whereas Louisiana barbecue shrimp has a bunch of seasonings, butter, Worcestershire, it's a different thing. And I love both of those, but I love to cook, I love to cook different things. One of the things I love to smoke is catfish.
Really?
And make a smoked catfish dip is delicious.
Really?
Oh yeah, love it.
So does fish smoke faster than I assume?
Oh yeah, I mean catfish fillets smoke very fast. We'll try and run it real low and drag it out.
Yeah.
We try and get that smoke on that catfish. And I'm not a big fish eater.
Yeah.
I do love catfish and love a good fried catfish, but this smoked catfish dip is it's delicious.
Wow. I don't know that I've ever had that.
Yeah.
So if somebody, let me make sure we don't have any more questions. Great. Ellen says we'll watch for the when you see smoke out. Your stuff sucks. Oh, Nick is talking about this year sucks, just with everything being canceled. Melissa Smith said something about smoked prime rib.
Oh yeah, we do like to do smoked prime rib every once in a while. So I mean, essentially, you take a rib roast.
Crazy. You
can either do bone-in or boneless rib roast.
Yeah.
And we'll hit it with kosher salt, then cracked black pepper.
Yep.
And then rosemary and thyme.
Okay.
And just coat it. I mean, you can coat the outside. You can't. It's hard to over salt it or over pepper it or put too much rosemary and thyme because it's all on the outside crust.
Yeah.
Put that in the smoker. Smoking it with like mesquite and apple wood is dynamite. Smoke it until you get it just the way you want it, maybe an internal temperature of 135 or something. Pull it off the smoker, let it rest for 30 minutes, and then slice that prime. We hadn't done prime rib in quite a while. We should have done that this weekend. It's delicious. I love it. I don't know. I wasn't thinking, obviously. Because I hadn't had smoked prime rib in a while. And then you can serve it with the au jus or with a horseradish sauce. It's delicious.
Yep. Lots of fish smoking done in New Zealand is what, I'm sure. Nick says, what about tri-tip, Carey? Tri-tips are very popular up here in Minnesota and the Dakotas. So does it mean like smoking them?
Yeah, so smoked tri-tip is very popular, like out in California and like he said in Minnesota and out west a little bit more, or Midwestern. Okay. It's a different cut of meat, but it's actually a very good cut of meat. We had some last night. We did. If it's cooked right, it's great. To smoke it doesn't take a whole lot of time, and It's really it's one of those. The butchers were looking for new cuts. I used to be in the beef business briefly, and they're always trying to be creative in their muscle cuts and what they can utilize out of the cow and what's going to produce something good. And Tritip was one of those things that came out, and now a lot of people smoke it, and it's great.
Yeah.
If it's done right, it's an excellent cut of meat, a little chewier, it's going to have a little more toughness to it, but it's a great cut of meat. It's very flavorful. And one of my favorite condiments, or one of my favorite things to do with beef, is I love chimichurri.
Yeah.
So I love to make a chimichurri, which is, you use flat leaf parsley, cilantro, kosher salt, black pepper, garlic, and then it's got olive oil and then red wine vinegar.
Yeah.
And chimichurri is the national condiment of Argentina and Brazil. They use it like we use ketchup.
Yeah.
And I love chimichurri on a tri-tip. Excellent.
Okay. And so if you were fixing a tri-tip, I don't know, a pound, how long would you smoke that for?
It doesn't take long.
No.
Doesn't take long. A tri-tip may weigh a pound to a pound and a half, depending if you get the full cut of tri-tip. Right now, we've got just some small steaks cut out of the tri-tip.
Right.
But it does not take long to smoke.
Okay.
And so you want to get a little bit of smokiness on the outside, and then you're probably going to want to sear it.
Yeah.
To get the outside crispy.
Yeah.
And so there's a million ways to cook it, but that's the way we typically do it. It's called a reverse sear.
Okay.
If you cook it slow first,
yeah,
and then you finish it by cooking it very hot and crisping the outside.
And you do that so the smoke flavor gets in first before
Yes.
you crisp the outside.
Yeah.
Let's see. Alan says, love fried catfish. Never tried smoked though. Angie Pangie says hello. Heather says sound good. Can you email me some shrimp? Megan Moore says, what is the source? Do you source your ingredients from local farms when possible?
So yeah, when possible, we do. We've got a close friend of mine, Karen Overton. I grew up with her brother and her twin sister and her older sister. And they raise hogs. I actually got them to start raising Mangalista hogs, but they raise other hogs, China Blacks and Yorkshires. And so if we're looking for something like a pork chop or something that's a better cut, we will buy it from a local farmer. We run through so much pork that local farmers cannot supply us with the amount of pork that we run through. Ribs, remember, you're going to get 2 racks of loin back ribs off a hog.
Yeah.
And that's it. And so, when you're looking at 400 racks of ribs on a Saturday, that's 200 hogs. And nobody around Nashville is killing 200 hogs except for the commodity farmers.
Right.
Now, what we do is on a national basis, we sign a commodity contract yearly so that we can lock in our rib price and we're not dealing with the market fluctuations. And so we sign that commodity contract usually in November, lock in a price for the year, and then we don't have to change our price of ribs. So now, we may lose on that.
Yeah.
Price of ribs, like right now, is 30 cents lower than what we pay.
Yeah.
But we're consistent all year round. We know exactly, and we commit to 140,000 pounds of ribs.
Right. So some of that may be coming locally and some may not, right?
Yeah, they're generally from the Corn Belt, they call it. It's over there in Kansas and Oklahoma, and a lot of pork comes out of North Carolina. Right now, our contract is with JBS Swift. They had the best product, and they were the most consistent for what we buy. So it just depends.
Gotcha. Hans, I believe is in Belgium, says we don't have too many good summer days, and now the weather's okay, but barbecues are still officially forbidden. Wow. So, I'm assuming could you not cook, Hans, like outside in your, on your patio or in your yard? I don't know. I don't know. Some of the
look, different countries have handled this coronavirus in different ways.
Yeah.
Sweden handled it by
Not
doing a
Yep.
shutdown
Yep.
and has had pretty good results with a herd immunity approach.
Yep.
I know Belgium, my nephew was in Belgium, and I think he was either in Belgium or Brussels, I forget.
He was in Brussels is Belgium. I think he was in Bruges.
Well, see, he was
might
in
have been
Bruges, and
Bruges or
he came
or
back
Brussels. Yeah.
and then had to self-quarantine.
Yeah.
So a lot of countries have handled it different ways, and we still have a lot of lockdowns in Tennessee. You can't gather more than 25 people at a time, and so it just depends on what your local laws are.
Yeah.
But if you want to, I don't want to say get around it, but if you do need to get around it, you're probably going to need to like drink some White Claws, because when you're drinking White Claws, there ain't no laws.
We have people from other countries.
Ain't no laws when you're drinking the claws. That's what they say. That's right.
I apologize for my
the
friend.
22-year-olds will know that. That's right.
Yeah. So yeah, they're definitely different rules everywhere. But a barbecue is here considered to be a party even. Okay, so they just can't have parties. And then Nick is saying we had a hog processing facility shut down up here in Minnesota. JBS just opened up their plant recently. While they were shut down, they euthanized hogs that couldn't be processed.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
When hogs reach maturity, they need to get to market. They don't want to hold them longer than that, cost them too much in feed and everything.
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate that a lot of animals have been euthanized. A lot of milk's been poured out. It's got a shelf life, and it's got, it's a shame.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, but that's what's happened.
Now you do cook whole hogs on occasion, special occasions, whatever, at the restaurant as well, right?
We cook whole hog, and we're, we've won several trophies at Memphis and May for being one of the top whole hog cookers in the world.
So tell them what Memphis and May is, and then maybe the difference between Memphis and Kansas City.
Yeah, Memphis and May is the world championship for pork barbecue. And I've competed in it for 28 years, I think. And we compete in the whole hog category. I think 3 years ago we took third place in the world in whole hog. Last year we took seventh place in the world. This year it's been canceled or actually rescheduled till September. We'll see what happens. But we love to cook whole hog, but we don't do it every day. The yield on a whole hog is terrible. So when I talk about yield, it's how much waste you lose when you cook something. So if I take an 8-pound pork butt and I smoke it for 18 hours, it shrinks. It renders out the fat, and you lose usable meat.
Right.
And that's where you get your yield.
Right.
A butt like that, a Boston butt, is going to get between 60 and 65% yield.
Okay.
So only 60 to 65% of it would be usable at the end of the day.
Right.
With a whole hog, you get 45% yield.
Really?
You lose so much to bone, to skin, to fat, that it's a terrible yield. Yeah. And so you have to price that in.
Right.
And so we cook whole hog when we feel like cooking whole hog.
Yeah. And that's a stay up all night kind of process as well. And just for you guys, so you know, Carey's wife, Delania, also started a team that's an all girls team to compete in Memphis and May, and Tracey and I were on that.
And against them, traitors.
We did. We competed against him.
Total traitors.
Although he was very helpful.
Yes.
And so when we were, when you're smoking a whole hog, you're staying up all night with it to make sure the temperature stays right. You're not running too hot, too low, all of those things. So
Heartburn.
yeah, it was an interesting process for us because we had never done that. And I
We were the lucky ones that get to stay up all night.
I think, Trace and
Well, Delaney did.
Carey's wife and Tracey and I stayed up all night with it. And it was a lot of fun.
It's fun.
But when you're
young.
it's a lot of work.
Too old now.
It's a lot of work.
Yes, a lot of work.
So if somebody's just starting out, and they want to know how to smoke. We'll take pork as a butt to start with. you know, I mean, I know like the green eggs are popular. They're pretty pricey. I mean,
Yeah.
what do you need to just,
Look, you can buy a cheap grill. A Weber kettle is $89.
okay,
You can cook barbecue on a Weber kettle. You
okay,
can cook ribs or you can cook a butt. It might take a little more tending because it's not really a smoker, but there's a lot of tools, aftermarket tools that they make for a Weber that can segment your coals off to one side while you're cooking a butt or cooking ribs. But, you know, look, it's all about trial and error. It's all about having fun and enjoying yourself. There's so much. You can find so many classes, so many things on the web that will show you exactly what you need to do. I've got some tutorials and videos that you can look up, and there's plenty from other people like Aaron Franklin or Mark Lambert or whoever. There's plenty out there to learn, but it just take your time and enjoy it.
Yeah.
Remember, the stall happens. There's something that's called a stall that happens at 160 degrees.
okay,
So your meat will be going up and going up and going up in temperature, and at 160 degrees, it'll flatten out, and it stalls, and it will not continue to rise. A lot of people get freaked out.
yeah,
They crank up their fire,
yeah,
and they alter what they're doing to try and compensate and get that meat to keep rising.
because you want it between what's the
Don't do that.
Okay,
Don't do that. The stall is a chemical reaction. It's a natural reaction with the fat, with the collagen, that it stalls. And now it may sit at that 160 for 30 minutes or an hour or 3 hours. Do not alter your cook. Cook through it. It will pop up and it'll start to rise. And once it does start to rise, you're not far from finishing. You want your internal temperature of the pork, butt, or the brisket to be 192.
okay,
And at 192, the collagen will have rendered out. It will have broken down. Those proteins will stretch out and they will sort of start to disintegrate, or water molecules will come in and they'll break apart. If you cook too fast or too hot, then those strings of proteins will bundle up and tighten up and they'll make it tough. And so there's a science to barbecue. And it's all about time and temperature. Don't just keep your temperature the same at the stall. Let it go. Let it get past that 160, and then you're not far from being done.
And what about, I mean, you prefer lump charcoal?
No. Lump charcoal to me burns too hot and it's too spiky because of the different size of it. There's a time and place to use lump charcoal. It's great for certain things. For barbecue, it's not so great. There are some products on the market. There's Kingsford Professional, or there's Royal Oak Chef Select is a great one that is essentially lump charcoal with no fillers except for maybe food starch that's been pressed into a briquette. The advantage of it being pressed into a briquette is that it's more even heat and more consistent, but it still burns hot and long like a lump charcoal. That's what we like to use, and then we use hickory.
Okay.
And so everybody's got their preference and what they like to use, but, in Memphis, most of the barbecue is cooked over charcoal.
Okay.
So.
Okay. What about seasoning? Oh, somebody was asking, I know Malcolm was asking about White Claw. So, Carey. First of all, we've been on the lake all day, so there might have been a few cocktails involved, and Carey's
not any White Claw.
Just silly.
There were still laws.
So for those of you, yeah, I know, but I don't think they have White Claws in New Zealand.
They might.
They might. Popular. They might. And so, Hans is in Antwerp, which is not far from Bruges, 2-hour drive. Okay, yeah. So barbecue is considered to be a party, but I mean, Hans, when we talk about barbecue, I mean, you can barbecue for just, your immediate family if you have that. I don't know. Okay, you can cooking.
So now I'm not a verb.
I know. You've told me that twice now. Sorry. So for us, there's only 6 of us, and we may be, we could, if we're not smoking anything this weekend, but we could.
We could.
For just us. So, you know, and the restrictions here, Hans, are just starting to lift. I mean, this is the first time that Tracey and I have seen these guys in probably 6 months because we were traveling.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Been a
you know,
while.
and it's only, there's only 6 of us here. We're trying to, you know, make sure we keep that to a minimum. And let's talk just a minute, Carey, about, yeah, the COVID-19 and the restaurant business in Nashville, and what's going on, like how many people, what are your restrictions there in terms of what you know, what you can do? Yeah.
Sucks. We were shut down for 6 weeks while we tried to regroup and see what was going on. About 3 weeks ago, we opened up with takeout only for a week, and then they allowed us to open up at 50% capacity with tables spread out. We're down 60% on our revenues per week. It cost us about $1 million in revenue just that 6 weeks we were shut down. We'll probably lose about $2.3 million in revenue for the year. It's very frustrating, but we're trying to look at the positive side of it and say, hey, there were some things we wanted to do that we got accomplished while we were shut down, and we're moving forward. We're going to power through this, and we're going to, I think, be stronger on the other side. But Nashville was hit harder than any other United States city. We saw a 51% decline in revenues across the board for all businesses. The national average in the United States was 21%.
Really?
Yeah, Nashville got economically hit harder than any other city in the United States.
Wow.
Well, because we have a lot of tourism.
Yeah.
Our economy relies a lot on sales tax.
Yeah.
And so those revenues were devastating.
Yeah. And now you're still having social distance at the restaurant. So when people come in, are you having to alternate tables where they sit?
We alternate tables where they sit. You know, my staff has now got to wear masks. You know, we're washing hands constantly, or else they're wearing gloves.
Yep.
And it's it's a different world.
Yeah.
Hopefully this will pass fairly soon. I just don't know.
So let's talk for a minute about seasonings and rubs and sauces and all that. I mean, you talked a little bit about, you know, I know Carolina's is more vinegar based, right?
Right.
So what's a typical? I don't know that you want to give away your rub.
No, a typical rub is going to have salt, pepper, probably chili powder, paprika, dry mustard, garlic powder, onion powder, maybe sugar, either white sugar or brown sugar.
Okay.
If you want it more like a sweet, savory rub, some will have cayenne or habanero powder.
Okay.
Ours is quite different. Like I said, ours is a barbecue seasoning meant to be put on after you cook the ribs.
Yep.
Whereas most people's are a rub meant to alter the flavor of the meat.
Okay. So what about sauces?
You know, we use a traditional West Tennessee tomato-based sauce.
Okay.
Ours is not overly sweet. It's not hot. It's not overly savory. It's kind of middle of the road.
Right.
When you get into other regions outside of Memphis, you know, in the Carolinas, it's all vinegar. And it's usually like vinegar, like apple cider vinegar, hot sauce, and maybe red pepper flakes.
Okay.
And maybe black pepper. And they're pouring that all over that hog, and then they're mixing it all together.
Okay.
We based with something similar to that.
Okay.
But that's not a sauce that we use. And it's funny because a lot of times in the Carolinas, they'll be like, well, they don't sauce their pork. And I'm like, well, that's bullshit. Of course they salt their pork. I mean, that vinegar sauce is a sauce.
Right.
Now, we use a tomato-based sauce. We don't put it on the pork unless you ask for it. It goes on a sandwich, but not on our traditional pulled pork. It's served with no sauce, and you can add the sauce.
Right.
Some people serve sloppy Joe style, which is sauce mixed in with the meat. We don't believe in that.
Yeah.
In Kansas City and St. Louis, it's generally a lot stickier and sweeter.
Okay.
You know, and then in Texas, they generally don't use sauce at all, and everything is just a salt and pepper rub for the most part.
Really?
Yeah, brisket, ribs, it's all, mainly just salt and pepper.
Interesting. How was Nashville after the tornado a few months ago? I mean, I haven't seen.
It's all right. They're rebuilding over in East Nashville. There was some areas that were really hard hit. Everybody's pitched in. We are the volunteer state. And so, you know, when we get hit with a devastating event like the flood or like the tornado, neighbors pitch in, they help, and stuff gets done. Nobody's trying to ask the federal government, you know, to come and bail them out. I mean, it's neighbors helping neighbors.
Yeah, and Nick Nashville had the last really devastating tornado that I remember was 1998 that tore through downtown, and then we had the flood 10 years ago this month, and it was pretty bad. But Nashville always rebounds. It's definitely a community, even to be. When Carey and I were growing up, I mean, yes, it was a city, but it was definitely more of a small town feel. It's grown a lot, but it still has a definite community, small town sensibilities kind of thing. Hans, who's in Antwerp, is also asking about if there's any government compensation for restaurant holders, and then he was saying in Belgium it's takeout only in certain modified restaurants, and then he says restaurants are going to open up at 60% there from early June. So as far as compensation, Hans, I mean, you want to talk a little bit, I guess, more?
Yeah, there's a loan program called the PPP program, and it's Paycheck Protection Program. And there's a lot of restrictions on it. We got a PPP loan to help bring our people back to work. It's helped some, but it was not geared towards restaurants. And so there's some definite disadvantages of that program for restaurants. They're talking about some more relief for restaurants. We don't know what will happen, but we've been able to utilize that PPP and help bring our people back to work. And right now we're at, like I said, 50%. Monday we can go to 75%.
Yeah. So Hans, over here, the government did offer these. They come out as loans, but they can be forgivable if you use them only for payroll. That obviously doesn't help offset any losses that a business owner may have, but it is intended to get people back to work, which is obviously important as well. So definitely some challenges there.
Yeah.
And then Malcolm, who's in New Zealand, says maximum 100 people in a venue, in groups no bigger than 10, must be seated, no ordering or drinking at bar. And I think we've got some bar restrictions.
Very similar.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
We've got to take all of our chairs away from the bar.
Yeah.
We've got a bartender up there, but you can kind of get a drink and go back to your table, and you can't sit at the bar. And it's, you know, it's weird because you have 4 people sitting together at a table, but they can't sit beside each other at the bar.
It's kind of
strange. Look, it's all strange.
Mark Walters is on here. Mark has a large travel vlog channel, and he likes to drink. He likes to drink. Well, he likes scotch, but he also likes Jack Daniels. And I've been telling him about your bourbon. Have we got a bottle here?
Yeah, I've got some bottles up there at the bar.
Bring one over so I can show Mark. I just saw your name. I haven't seen that. Mark says, I remember a few floods when I lived in the Mississippi, brought people together. You're absolutely right, Mark. It's you know, it's a great community.
Tracey
And
can't reach those bottles. They're way up on the top shelf. Oh, she found one. Yeah, there's
Which
our
one is
12-year-old. That's our 12-year-old.
so let's talk a little bit about that too, because and how you use that. So Mark, can you see that? Let me put it up closer.
That's our 12-year-old bottle.
Mark Walters, whenever we meet up, I'm going to bring you something. I don't know if it's 12 year. You've got 3 different ones now.
So we have a white label that is a 4 to 6-year-old. We have a gray label, which is 8-year-old. This is our black label, which is 12-year-old. And the thing that makes our bourbon different is that after we debarrel it, so it's aged, we debarrel it, we run it through hickory charcoal to finish it before it's bottled.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it special and unique. This 12-year-old is great. We've won a double gold at San Francisco World Spirits with this 12-year-old. And so we're pretty proud of it, and it's done extremely well.
Yeah. And you've got Fever.
Yeah,
Fever.
yeah, we don't,
do much with that anymore.
Yeah, we might relaunch.
Coming up with some other ideas for some different alcoholic additions too,
Yes.
right? So,
Yes.
but Mark, for sure, we'll get you some of that because it's good. So
Good stuff.
he makes his drink that he likes to drink a lot instead of it's usually called a dark and stormy. Is that right?
Yeah, I drink a pork and stormy.
Yeah. So dark and stormies are rum.
Yeah.
And he,
Pegleg Porker bourbon and ginger beer.
yeah.
Some people have a lime.
Lime
I don't like
twist.
the lime. It's too much.
So yeah. Restaurant. So Paul Tipton is in the UK. Restaurants not open in the UK. One pub near me has said they are doing a hog roast tomorrow, but you must pre-book in advance for a time slot.
That's
in the
cool.
UK.
Well,
Yeah.
that's all right. That's a
Yeah.
good way to do it.
Megan Morris and Megan is in Kentucky. I believe she's near Lexington, not Louisville. She says 33% capacity for restaurants. Bars won't be open till at least July, although some bars are trying to operate as restaurants by serving chips or peanuts. Right?
That's happening in downtown Nashville as well.
Is it really?
Yeah, the downtown bars are
The honky
serving.
tonks.
You know, some of them
basically.
already served a lot of food, but now a lot of them are serving more food so that they can open as a restaurant.
Nick Peterson says sound like great bourbon. It is. Tracy and I are not actually huge bourbon drinkers, but we have partaken in some Pegleg bourbon every once
Oh
in a
yeah,
while.
they both got completely crunked up last night and passed out on the couch after drinking a lot of Pegleg.
We were in bed at 12:30. Somebody else
Crunk.
might have been passed out sitting up.
Crunk. They were crunked up.
Not true.
Yeah.
Not true. Hans says in Belgium, the support from the government cuts both ways. Employees that are technically unemployed get some pay compensations to survive, and the employers get financial support. Yeah, so Hans, they did provide more unemployment for the restaurant employees while restaurants were shut down. If they were furloughed or fired, we have an unemployment program, and then there was an additional stipend given to those folks.
That asshole just does.
So yeah, I know. Dark and stormy. Jocelyn will knock a few of those back. Yeah, we'll definitely have to meet up for those. Mark, I think you guys need to come down to Nashville though. Paul in the UK says he missed the beginning. It sounds interesting. Nick says takeout only up here. Government Minnesota is only allowing outside dining 25% of the 6-1. Still no inside dining. And that's in Nick is in
We got inside
Minnesota.
dining at 50%.
Yeah, he's in Minnesota. Hello from Toasty, Los Angeles. Barbecue vegan options. Not sure if it exists. Be nice.
Oh, it exists.
Be nice.
Yeah, absolutely. No, we've had vegans want barbecue for certain caterings that we've done, and we've actually smoked tofu.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to eat that shit, but
Carrie.
I mean, no, but it's good. The people that we've done it for really like it a lot. You know, you can do
Oh my gosh.
great. You can do great. You know, smoked vegan stuff.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's out there, and I love one of my favorite dishes is actually charbroiled broccoli rabe. So like broccolini,
Yeah.
you know, small broccolini.
Yeah.
I love to charbroil that on the grill.
Yeah.
It's delicious.
Yeah. When
And
you,
that char really adds to it.
yeah.
I'm just not a big tofu guy. But we have smoked tofu on
Okay.
numerous occasions. And you could take smoked tofu and then coat it with barbecue sauce and maybe hit it on the grill where it kind of glazes on there.
Oh, nice.
And you know, when we've served it to people like that, they've loved it.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, there you go. So frost element, I guess it can happen. Yeah. One last thing I want to talk about, just because I know this has come up on some of the Walter's World chats.
Yeah, I don't know how I was born. I don't know how I got this good looking. I was born this way.
Pimento cheese, which, so moving from Tennessee to Indiana, pimento cheese is not really a thing there, but in the South, it's a staple.
You
And
know, pimento cheese was actually originated in the North.
they don't need it. I mean, I'm telling you, in Indiana,
It was
it's not-
originated in the North.
Okay,
That's
so
the history. That's the true history of it.
So Carrie was actually on a documentary,
Pimento cheese, please.
yeah, called
It's
Pimento
on-
Cheese,
It's
Please.
on Vimeo if you want to look it up.
I'll see if I can find a link and attach it to this later. So talk a little bit about your pimento cheese.
I grew up with pimento cheese. My grandmother made it, and she made a very distinct pimento cheese that I love. It's very dense. It's not real mayonnaise-y and with the shards. Now, my wife and I fight about this all the time.
Yeah.
And she likes it with the big shards and the mayonnaise. You know, she'll buy the shredded cheese and make it with that. That's cheater pimento cheese. And, you know, she's like, oh, people like my pimento cheese better than yours. I'm like, no, they don't.
So what's in yours?
Mine is sharp cheddar cheese that you grate. We used to grate it with that little round grater with that red handle that made it almost like spaghetti noodles. Very fine, finely grated.
Okay.
And then you would mash it with a fork. And we use Miracle Whip, not mayonnaise, because it's a little tinier. Black pepper, pickle juice, a little bit of salt, and the pimentos. And so mine is very dense. If you were to try and spread it on bread, it would break the bread. I usually eat it with crackers. Now we make it with a food processor because it's a much easier process.
Right.
But, you know, a lot of people make it with the shards, and then very mayonnaise-y, and the pimentos, black pepper, whatever. And, you know, when Delaney is telling me, she's like, oh, mine is better than yours. And I have to look at her and I say, oh, I'm sorry. Were you featured in a pimento cheese documentary? Maybe you need to shut up.
And this
because mine is much better, and they sought me out to be in a documentary, and you are not in that documentary.
It is a legit ongoing battle. It is legit, and they really do that. And we've got a couple other things. In Spain, they put leek on the open fire. The outer leaves blacken, and the center gets soft and tasty, served with a good spiced tomato sauce. Yeah, delicious. Malcolm is saying tofu is not food. Megan Morris is saying beer cheese is the best, very popular in Kentucky.
Delicious in Kentucky. When we go to Kentucky, they usually send us home with some beer cheese and love it.
Do they really?
Oh, it's delicious.
So, and that's usually at the Danville?
We do a barbecue festival in Danville every year. Now it's been at the Wilderness Trace Distillery for a couple of years, and it's called the Kentucky Barbecue Festival. And we love it, and they usually send us home with some beer cheese, and I love some good beer cheese from Kentucky.
There you go. Ryan Donahue said, hi, I didn't realize it started early. Sorry, Ryan. Melissa Smith says she makes the best pimento cheese. I think that's what she's saying.
I'm sorry. Melissa, were you in a pimento cheese documentary? I don't recall you being in there. But anyway, I mean, you know.
Nick is asking us what the popular sides are for barbecue in Nashville. So before, you know, y'all noticed Carey's very modest about his food. So before he says anything, I will say this. Macaroni and cheese. Carey's macaroni and cheese is awesome. Although I don't know that that's necessarily a common side in a lot of barbecue restaurants. I mean, the beans and the coleslaw.
It's pretty common. The most common sides would be baked beans and coleslaw.
Yep.
Actually, I want to say our most popular side is our smoked green beans,
which are amazing.
Now, people either love them or they hate them.
Yeah.
So it's no in between.
Yeah.
There's not the people who love them love them. The people who don't like that smokiness in their green beans hate them.
So talk a little bit about that. So Carey's sides are, again, it's a small menu.
We only have 6 sides.
Yeah. So it's the
we got crinkle cut French fries, barbecue beans, smoked green beans, mac and cheese, potato salad, and coleslaw.
Yeah. So that's it. So and they're all awesome, but for me, it's usually the smoked green beans and the mac and cheese. So what do you do with your green beans? How do you get that smokiness? There's a little bit of pork in them, right?
Oh, yeah. So I am they call me the father of the modern can-to-table movement. And so,
can-to-table.
And so instead of farm-to-table, we're a can-to-table restaurant.
Yeah.
We barbecue restaurants have been using canned beans and stuff for years.
Sure.
So, people want to say, well, do you do your stuff from scratch? Well, yes, we do. I mean, we take it out of the can and then we add all of our ingredients and we do our stuff to it. And so with our smoked green beans, I've actually published that recipe a number of times. It's the easiest recipe that we have. We take a French cut or Italian cut green bean, which is a flat bean, and we take them out of the can. You can go get them at your grocery store in a can. And then we add bacon, and we add white onion, and we add salt and coarse ground black pepper. And then we put those in a large pan with a big surface area, and we smoke them for 3 hours. And that smoke will sit on top of that juice. We dump them in the pan with all their juice, and then you stir them up, and it's got a smoky flavor, and they're really great. And it's very simple. It's very easy. It's got bacon in it, and they're very tasty.
Yep.
But that's as simple as it is.
Yep.
It's really pretty simple.
Melissa Smith says she likes Delaney's pimento cheese better. That's
Well,
what
of course
said.
she does. She's loyal to Delaney. She's on her barbecue team. And Delaney is bigger than Melissa and would probably whip her ass if she didn't say that. And so I understand Melissa's point of view, and I love Melissa, but she knows who's got the better pimento cheese. It's very clear.
Okay.
One of us was in a documentary and one of us was not. And
And he really was in a documentary, y'all. L. Janine Davidson, which is actually my sister Lisa.
yeah.
So she's saying hello.
Hey, Lisa, how you doing?
She said, "How you doing, barbecue Bringle?" That's what she called you.
Nice. Yes.
So I think that's probably it. Unless you guys have any more questions, we really just wanted to get on here and talk a little bit about the barbecue. I mean, Nashville has a ton of barbecue restaurants now.
Got a good, great barbecue community in Nashville.
And one of Carrie's things, I think you even had this printed on one of your cups. It says you don't have to hate. What is it?
We had it print. We do plastic cups that you can take home, and one of the cups, and we change them up every season. And our last cup said it's not a requirement for you to hate someone else's barbecue in order to love mine.
Right.
Barbecue is great. There's many different styles. There's many different takes on it. Many different varieties, and I encourage you to try everybody's and see what you like. And it's okay to like multiple places. A lot of our customers also go to Martin's. They also go to Edley's, or they also go to Jack's or Honey Fire or, wherever.
Even
around
change,
town.
because a lot of these people are going to
Yeah.
not be in Nashville. So
Yeah.
change.
And so I love different styles of barbecue. Just because I smoke dry ribs and that's what we do doesn't mean I don't like a wet or sticky rib. I do.
Right.
It just, everybody is a little bit different. And so I encourage you to go out and try and you don't have to have one that's your only barbecue that you love. You can have multiple. And that's what's great about it.
Yep. And Melissa says something about your fried pies.
Yeah. So we make fried pies at the restaurant. We love them. They're we've got apple and chocolate and peach, and they are a pastry dough filled with a filling that are deep fried, and they're delicious. We serve them with a glaze, like a donut glaze on them, or you can get it a la mode with ice cream on it, and they are wonderful. Not many people in Nashville do, or not many people around the country do actual fried pies anymore, but they were a staple in the South when I was growing up. You'd go into a gas station, and they had them at room temperature in a little wax paper sleeve.
Yep.
And I love them. So we make them fresh. We fry them to order.
So, yeah, I mean, I
And
hope.
our fried pies, they're like making sex on a rainbow. They are. We have a T-shirt that actually says that. So
Well, he does.
They do.
Yeah.
They do.
So I will link to what's the video renders. I will make sure and link to Carrie's restaurant. You can actually order sauces, rubs. You can actually order ribs or anything.
we ship nationwide
Yeah.
with Gold Belly. If you go to our website, peglegporker.com, you can get ribs shipped to you anywhere in the country. And that comes with sauce and dry seasoning, or you can get a box of our 2 sauces and a dry seasoning.
Yeah.
And then we've got merchandise on Amazon and also on Store Envy.
Yeah.
You have pork rinds, right?
And we have our pork rinds, which we bag for retail, and those come in your ribs and pulled pork when you order on Gold Belly. And then we also sell them on Store Envy by the case.
Yeah. And if you guys ever, I know Nashville is on some folks' list, and as people, particularly the U.S.-based people, are doing more road trips this year since we can't travel internationally, make sure and go to Pegleg's. He's usually there. You want to tell him where your spot is and what it's called?
I'm usually on the corner of the bar. It's called Bullshit Corner.
It literally has a plaque that says Bullshit Corner on it.
And so come and see us. We'd love to have you come and visit.
Yeah.
If you like good barbecue, that's what we try and serve.
Yep. All right. So, Carey, thank you for being here. Let me see who else. Megan says, oh, Han said, nice to see you in your habitat. Nick said, thanks so much for bringing your friend. Thanks for sharing your love of barbecue with us, Carey. Dry ribs are the best. Can't wait to try yours next time I'm in Nashville. Thanks for the chat. Yeah, Megan, since you're in Lexington, definitely check it out. It's a lot of fun. His restaurant is located in the Gulch, so pretty close to downtown.
Yeah, we're in downtown.
Yeah.
We're pretty close to the convention center.
Yeah.
Right off 8th Avenue.
And like I said, I'll have links. I'll link to his site and everything, his website and all that after the video renders, so you guys can look it up. Malcolm wants to know if you deliver to New Zealand. I don't think Gold Belly delivers. Do they?
Gold Belly, I don't believe delivers to New Zealand, but we could probably, if you want to pay the shipping, we could ship you sauces and rub to New Zealand.
Yeah, but not ribs and all that.
Not ribs because they have to go cold.
Yeah. Lisa says, please send everything to my house. Lisa, I can take care of you on that. Nick said BS Corner, love it. Lisa sent smiley faces. Oh yeah. Sorry.
So if you want to go on Spotify or iTunes or on our website, and you can link to our podcast. It's called Pegleg Porker's Live from BS Corner. Yes, just be ready for colorful language if you haven't already. It's not family friendly.
Yeah, it's not family friendly at all. But but it's a lot of fun. So thank y'all so much for hanging out with us tonight. I think we are going to go make sure dinner's getting started, and hope everybody has a great Memorial Day tomorrow. Those of you that are in the U.S. And Hans, glad you finally got to make a live stream. I know we've been talking about that on our comments. Malcolm, thanks for being here. I'm not sure what time it is in New Zealand, but thank you for being here. Everybody else, of course, Nick, Megan, Walter's World, whoever else, Lisa. Thank y'all, and we will see y'all next week.
All right.
Bye, y'all.
Thank you for having me. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. It's not working.